Valerie, why are you sitting there? I don't remember inviting you, she sneered when she spotted me at Madeline's wedding, her voice dripping with disdain. Madeline's next words cut deep. Get out of here, you unemployed loser. You're just here to embarrass me. Her cruelty shattered any lingering goodwill I had harbored for her. Defeated, I muttered, "Fine, I'll stay out of your life," and quietly exited. As I left, a sudden commotion erupted, drowning out Madeline's cries for help. Leaving the venue, I walked alongside Conrad, my husband whom I'd married a few years ago. "I'm Valerie, a freelance illustrator," I began, recounting my current circumstances. Conrad, often away for work, was my pillar of support. Then, life threw a curveball. News arrived that my mother had fallen down the stairs back home, fracturing her leg. While not life-threatening, she needed care during her recovery. The looming question remained, who would be there to provide it? Dad had recently injured his back and relied on a walking stick, leaving him unable to assist Mom. I initially hoped my sister Madeline, who still lived at home, could pitch in while I offered weekend support. However, Madeline dismissed Mom's injury, insisting it's just a fracture she can manage on her own. Her indifference and frequent insensitive remarks made me doubt her reliability in caring for Mom. Eventually, I made the decision to move back home to take care of Mom while Conrad was away. While my parents welcomed my return, Madeline did not share their enthusiasm. "Why are you back? You're in the way," she grumbled whenever our paths crossed in the kitchen or living room. Whether out of long-standing animosity or jealousy, her hostility made living under the same roof challenging, prompting me to avoid confrontation with her. Despite my efforts to focus on caring for Mom, Madeline continued to antagonize me. I took on Mom's household responsibilities, enduring Madeline's criticisms of my cooking and even finding laundry strewn in my room on occasion. Though her actions were immature, I chose not to engage. 2 weeks after my return, a knock interrupted my thoughts, prompting me to open the door, curious about Madeline's sudden visit. "Are you ever going to work? All you do is stay home, aside from shopping or going to the hospital. You're not even working, are you?" she accused. I tried to explain that I work as a freelance illustrator for my laptop, but she didn't understand. "So you sit there drawing pictures on your laptop and expect that to count as a job? That's no different from being unemployed and holed up at home. Having someone like you in the house is the worst," she retorted angrily before storming off to her room, her footsteps echoing her frustration. A few days later, Madeline announced, "I want you to meet someone. Wait in the living room." We followed her instructions, and soon she returned with a tall, slender man whose hopeful expression seemed highlighted by the mole under his left eye. "Nice to meet you all. I'm Rodney, Madeline's fiancé. Thank you for having me here today." He greeted us warmly, extending his hand for a handshake. Surprised by the unexpected visitor, my parents and I exchanged greetings with him, unsure of what to make of this introduction. "Nice to meet you," we greeted Rodney, taken aback by the revelation that Madeline had a fiancé, a surprise to both us and our parents. As they began sharing their story, we exchanged puzzled glances. "I met Rodney at work. He's incredibly sincere, capable, and wonderful," Madeline gushed with admiration. "Don't flatter me too much," Rodney chuckled, clearly enjoying the attention. They laughed and reminisced about their first meeting, what drew them to each other, and their future plans together. Rodney spoke fondly of Madeline's outgoing personality, which struck me as odd since the Madeline I knew was often rebellious, self-centered, and lacked empathy. It was hard to reconcile this description with the sister I grew up with. "I really want to marry him. Please give us your blessing," Madeline implored our parents, her eyes earnest. From my perspective, Rodney seemed too good for Madeline, and I had no objections to their union. Surprisingly, my parents shared the sentiment. Though caught off guard by the news, they smiled warmly and offered their blessings for the marriage. After Rodney left, while tidying up the tea and snacks, Madeline confronted me. "Jealous, aren't you, Valerie?" "Jealous of what?" "I'm marrying a wonderful, good-looking, high-earning man, something you could never pull off," she taunted with a smug smile. I met her gaze calmly. "I'm not jealous. I'm genuinely happy you found someone so wonderful," I replied evenly. Her smile faltered, clearly not expecting such a response. She sighed dramatically, her tone dripping with condescension. "The snacks you served Rodney were so cheap. Couldn't you have prepared something more upscale? But I guess being unemployed, you can't afford it." If I had known you were bringing your fiancé, I would have arranged something appropriate. You really should have picked up on my happy vibe lately. I hate how you can't read a room. As I looked at Madeline, I couldn't help but wonder how sustainable her marriage would be. That night, I felt concerned for Rodney. I reached out to Conrad as I often did when feeling lonely. His voice on the other end of the line was a comforting routine, helping me through the emotional weight of the situation. I told him about Madeline bringing her fiancé. Wow, Madeline has a fiancé. That's great news. Yes, his name is Rodney Bland. He seems too good for her. As soon as I mentioned that, Conrad's demeanor shifted. Wait, did you say Rodney Bland? Yes, why? What's wrong? Conrad's voice turned grave as he accurately described Rodney's appearance, mannerisms, and the distinctive mole under his left eye. Stunned, I asked, "Are you serious?" "Valerie, you need to tell Madeline to reconsider marrying Rodney. He's a scam artist." My heart sank. What? Are you sure? Rodney used to work for me. He left years ago after we discovered he was scamming multiple women out of their money and disappearing. I've been trying to track him down ever since. I stopped short of contacting the victims directly. We need to be absolutely sure it's him. Get a photo of Rodney from Madeline, and let's verify. Okay, I agreed, feeling a mix of disbelief and urgency. The next day, I approached Madeline under the guise of wanting a photo of Rodney to draw a caricature for their welcome board. She grumbled but reluctantly handed over the photo. When Conrad saw it, his expression hardened. That's definitely him, Rodney the scam artist. You need to convince her to reconsider before she loses any money, Conrad urged. I was planning to do that anyway. Despite our differences, I want Madeline to be happy, I affirmed, feeling the weight of responsibility as her older sister. I wasted no time in confronting Madeline with the truth about Rodney. She scoffed in disbelief. You're just jealous and trying to ruin my fiancé's reputation. I'm not. Connor told me everything. Please, Madeline, reconsider. You deserve better, I pleaded earnestly. I persisted in my efforts to persuade her daily, but each attempt only fueled her anger. She refused to listen, and her animosity towards me grew. I even enlisted our parents to reason with her, but when Madeline realized it was at my behest, her hostility intensified. She began to harass me openly, bursting into my room to berate me for being unemployed or banging on my door to disrupt my work. Despite neighbors' complaints, their hostility towards me persisted unchecked. I had reached the end of my patience and goodwill as her sister. While some might argue, she's your only sister, you should keep trying. There's a limit to what I can do for someone who refuses to listen and continually harasses me. I resigned myself to seeking advice from Conrad and my parents on how to proceed. On the day of the wedding, I arrived with a modest wedding gift and entered the opulent venue. The setting was grand, the food lavish, and Madeline's friends and relatives were already immersed in the celebration. As I observed the sumptuous spread being served, I noticed something unsettling. No drinks had been offered to me while my parents were enjoying a full-course meal nearby. When I queried the staff, they promised to check on it and disappeared. Moments later, Madeline, resplendent in a pristine white wedding gown, approached me, the click of her heels echoing in the grand hall. Valerie, why are you sitting there? I don't recall inviting you, she remarked coldly. Not just myself, but also my parents, the guests, and even the staff turned towards Madeline in astonishment. The lively venue, alive with chatter just moments ago, fell into an eerie silence, punctuated by hushed murmurs. Despite being the focal point of this negative attention, Madeline regarded me with a smug expression. You have the nerve to show up here after insulting my fiancé? Unbelievable. Oh, but I guess being unemployed means you don't understand basic manners, she sneered. My parents, standing beside me, intervened. Madeline, stop this. It's your wedding day. Ignoring their pleas, Madeline persisted. How can I enjoy my wedding if people know my sister is unemployed? Just leave, you're embarrassing me. With a heavy sigh, I rose from my seat. After sharing a concerned glance with my parents, I met Madeline's gaze squarely. I came here to celebrate your wedding as your sister, but clearly you don't want that, I said, feeling the weight of her words. It's a shame. Who wouldn't want to be supported by someone who's unemployed like me? Fine then, I'm leaving. One more thing. Are you absolutely sure you won't regret this if I walk out that door? Because if I do, it might be the end of our sisterhood. Perfect, she responded, cutting me off. Just go. It's better this way. Any remaining affection and love for her vanished in that moment. Fine, I told Madeline firmly. Consider us done. Don't contact me again. As I walked away, I could hear Madeline arguing with her parents behind me, but it was no longer my concern. Pulling out my phone, I dialed Conrad's number. You can come in now, I said quietly. There's no need to wait any longer. Understood, Conrad replied, his voice steady as he relayed the message. Moments later, a group of women who had been waiting outside rushed into the venue. Get him, Rodney. Don't let him get away. Outside, the echoes of angry shouts and gasps from the surprised guests reached me. Moments later, the door burst open, and Rodney, the groom, dashed out, his face drenched in sweat. He attempted to flee, but Conrad, strategically positioned nearby, swiftly apprehended him. Got you, Rodney. You're not going anywhere, Conrad declared firmly. Conrad, what the hell? Madeline's furious voice cut through the commotion as she and a group of women hurried over to confront the bewildered Rodney. Are you trying to ruin our wedding? Get away from me, Conrad. Madeline lashed out, lunging at him, but I intervened, grabbing her arm to restrain her. Startled at first, Madeline's expression quickly twisted into rage as she turned on me, seizing my collar. This is your doing, isn't it? You're despicable. How many times did I warn you to stay out of my business, especially about Rodney? As I spoke, I turned towards Rodney and gestured towards the group of women surrounding him. Rodney here has been dating these women and scamming them out of their money. They're planning to take legal action against him. What? Are you kidding me? This isn't a joke, Madeline, I said sternly, looking at Rodney, who avoided eye contact, clearly uneasy. Madeline, stunned, muttered, Rodney, you can't be serious. Rodney, visibly shaken, looked down and attempted a smile as he addressed the women around him. Why bother with lawsuits? Let's settle this. I'm about to marry a wealthy woman. I can compensate you, right? Me? Wealthy? Madeline trembled as she spoke. I don't have that kind of money. What? What? I lied about being wealthy, so I can't pay any settlement or damages. What then? What about the $20,000 you've been giving me? That was for our wedding. You said to trust you with it, so I did. You didn't spend it all, did you? Madeline demanded incredulously. I blew through that $20,000 in a day, Rodney admitted with a nonchalant shrug. What? Are you serious? Give it back, my $20,000. Madeline's voice cracked with anger and betrayal. The exchange left everyone present dumbfounded. Rodney, exposed as a scammer who exploited women for money, and Madeline, revealed to have deceived about her wealth to secure their marriage. It was a surreal match indeed. The guests who had gathered due to the commotion reacted with whispers and wide-eyed disbelief. After a heated argument with Rodney, Madeline noticed the attention and erupted in frustration. What are you all staring at? Get out. The wedding is over. Just leave your gifts and go, she commanded, motioning for the staff to escort the guests out. Then, in a sudden change of direction, she rushed over to me. Valerie, you were right. If only I had listened to you, none of this would have happened. I'm sorry. Please help me, Madeline pleaded, her tone more desperate than sincere. But her words rang hollow, and Conrad, standing beside me, silently shook his head. I nodded in agreement, pulling away from her touch. I told you, we're done. We're strangers now. I won't help you, I asserted firmly. What? How can you say that, Valerie? You're abandoning your own sister, Madeline protested, her voice tinged with disbelief and desperation. I don't have a sister anymore. Goodbye, Madeline. Let's never cross paths again, I replied, turning away from her. Wait, Valerie, please. Ignoring her cries, Conrad and I left the venue. Later, through my parents, I learned about Madeline and Rodney's fate. Madeline was disowned and expelled from the family home, forced to move in with Rodney due to their legal marriage. Rodney faced lawsuits from the women he had deceived, leading him to take out loans to settle the debts. The strain of financial ruin ultimately shattered their marriage, ending in divorce. Now both destitute, their once promising union had crumbled. About 6 months after Madeline's ill-fated wedding, my mother's fracture healed, and life resumed its usual pace. My temporary assignment concluded, and I returned home, visiting my parents periodically. A year later, Conrad and I welcomed our first child, blessed with the support of our loving families.